Thank you for keeping it Smart Means Business. Good morning, Uganda. How are you? And now it's time for us to get into our SMB Insights this morning. And our SMB Insight this morning is looking at the integration of the East African Community member states, how much this integration means to the regional growth and development of various sectors, and also pretty much a situation targeting the need for a one common currency. And then also there is also need for at least having the same level of the exchange rates that need to be consistent without changing or at least influencing in one way or the other. Now, besides the same kind of situation, in the Insight here today, we get to realize that there is also need to upgrade inter and the intrastate connectivity, such as transportation systems, the road network, and of course the railway system as well, for easier trade in the same realistic approach. Now we get this and more in our SMB Insights this morning.
The conversation to having a common currency really rotates around aspects of regional integration. And from an academic point of view, I understand we have had an elusive journey when it comes to achieving regional integration. And of course, it happens around 7 stages, and I think by the time we reach at a common currency, we are at the stage of forming a monetary union. So prior to that, there is that journey that we have walked, that initially we start from a preferential trade agreement, literally, which envisages that as countries, when we are near each other, we are able to trade at lower transaction costs because the distance is small. But when we are at that stage of preferential trade agreement, then countries can go on to form a free trade area where they now reduce on the barriers to trade, such that the exchange of goods and services is a bit seamless. But now moving from a free trade area, countries can go to a customs union. East African community has been there, where now they are removing visible trade barriers, such that now the transaction costs are reduced further. And from that customs unions, then we can go to the stage of a common market, where also the East African community has reached. That now the custom unions is accompanied by the free movement of factors of production, that you have removed the visible trade barriers, but also factors of production can move freely within the countries. From there is where you go to a single market, where we have been as the East African community, where now even the invisible trade barriers are removed, things to do with the certificates and licenses and aspects to do with the standards, all those are removed. So now we are transitioning from that stage that we are going to a monetary union where we use a common currency across the countries. But now the conversation really would be that as we have walked this journey, we owe to ourselves a very critical sort of assessment on whether we have been achieving those stages or not. That to move from to move from a common market to a single market, did we really achieve the preconditions that, or the requirements that were necessary for a single market? And I'm pretty much sure when we start implementing this monetary union, East African countries are overly ambitious. In the next few years, you might hear them ratifying or engaging in protocols to now reach another stage, which is an economic union. From a monetary union, you go to an economic union, where now you go beyond using a common currency, but now you're also using or implementing same economic policies within the region. So we owe ourselves that assessment whether really we have been satisfying the requirements at each stage. Because when you look at a single market, that requires us not to be, emphasizing much of those standards and certificates. I don't think it is free for us to trade within the region. Those barriers are still there. You're moving your goods through Kenya, they will ask for them, the standards and those certificates. But the overall point is why we regionalize or why we integrate is that we want to reduce the transaction costs, and by the time we reach at the monetary union, we want to do such by removing the exchange rate volatilities or changes that come with the differences in our national currencies. But still, when it comes to that, I understand with the protocol which nations signed in 2013 to form a monetary union, they expressed the desire to have a common currency, and they indeed expressed the commitment to pursue a common exchange rate policy management, because that's what it would require. But for us to have a common currency, then we should have a common exchange rate policy management. And that exchange policy management requires us to address about three things. That number one, as partner states, the exchange rate arrangements which we are going to be using should be constant, should be in line with the financial developments, but also with the macroeconomic stability on country-by-country basis. Because we know the transition period for us to move from a single market to a monetary union is one that is uncertain. Number two, the exchange rate at which we are going to change our national currencies, say Ugandan shilling, to a union-wide currency that we are going to use across the region, should also be consistent or in line with that macroeconomic stability, both in the final run-up to the monetary union, but also post the monetary union. And number three is that the transition period should be long enough to allow for institutional groundwork to be done, such that we eliminate things that could put pressure on the common currency that we are going to have. And when we assess ourselves on that readiness, you can see really we are not ready. And it gives me an indication why this period has been extended further. Because we ratified this protocol in 2013, and we gave ourselves a transition of 10 years. So by 2024, we are supposed to be beginning effecting this monetary union. But recently, finance ministers across the region met in Arusha, and they have agreed to extend the period further to I think by 10 years to 2030, 2042, thereabout. So it shows you that in terms of readiness, we are not very sure. But also, when it comes to that, the other conversation we might need to understand is what method do we use to come up with that exchange currency. Because currently, partner states, we are using different exchange rate management systems. That countries like Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya, we are probably using what is called a managed floating exchange rate system, where literally commercial banks, no, not commercial banks, central banks, they commit an exchange rate, but its value is determined by the foreign exchange market arrangements, which are by and large determined by the market forces of demand and supply. And the central banks are not very decisive in coming up with the value of the exchange rate. When you look at a country like Rwanda, they are probably using what is called a crow-like sort of exchange rate management, where now it's the central bank that is very decisive in coming up with the value of the exchange rate of the exchange rate, but of course ensuring that that exchange rate is within the 2% margin of the exchange rate within the past 6 months. So for Rwanda, it is more managed, or it is more controlled, it is more fixed when we compare to the other countries. When we come to other countries like Burundi, probably they are using what is called a stabilized exchange rate. Others that have just joined us, like South Sudan and the DRC, we even don't know the kinds of exchange rates that they are managing. So the whole issue rotates around the kind of criteria that we are going to use to come up with that common currency. Of course, when we choose the market determined, then it will put pressure on Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. So we might end up losing much with that system if it's the one we are to use. If again we are to use a fixed exchange, then in countries like Rwanda will lose out. So those sorts of things are going to affect the implementation coming up with a common currency. But in the transition process, there are two things which happen. There is a convergence phase, and there is also conversion phase. So literally, in the conversion phase, we are supposed to work on the preconditions that should make trade a bit seamless by working on the institutions and coming up with a very standard sort of criteria that puts a clear mechanism on how we are going to accord the fiscal responsibilities country by country. Because we know, much as we are similar in terms of characteristics for our economies, that we are agrarian, we use the rudimentary tools of production. In terms of structural composition of our economies, we are innately different. That a country like Kenya is more advanced in terms of per capita incomes. They have reached higher stages of industrialization than these other countries. So really, working on those things will be disadvantaging some countries while benefiting the others. And that's where I want to array my fears of coming up with this this common currency that we are going to use. But the other conditions probably which are very vital and we are not paying attention to them, beyond these institutional arrangements that we are creating, they are basic prior conditions that we are supposed to be working on. Things to do with the infrastructure or interstate and intrastate connectivity broadly. Those are things which matter when it comes to trade and trade competitiveness. Even if we have a single currency and we are still spending 48 hours of transporting a truck from Maraba to Mombasa, trade will be affected, and also taking into account the kinds of goods that we trade within the region. They are mainly primary products that are perishable. So if I'm exporting my matoke from Bushenyi to Mombasa, and it's going to take me 4 days to reach that destination, the whole consignment will reach when it is ripe. And we have incurred a lot of losses to that effect. So we need to work on that inter and intrastate connectivity to ensure that trade is seamless. We are not having plain cargoes. Because you'll find it is easier to export to Qatar than it is to export to Kenya. Because when you use a plain cargo, the goods reach faster. But again, when you want to export by the same mode, say you want to export South Sudan, probably the goods have to first reach Qatar because you're using Fry Emirates and they come back to Juba. Or if you want to export to Ouagadougou, things first go to Brussels in Belgium and they come back because we are lacking those transportation facilities in the terms of the plane cargo. So my fears range.
African communities don't ready for a common currency.
And that is it for the SMB Insight, focusing on the integration of East African member states. Now, besides that, we're now heading into our story preview as we look at what to expect in tonight's bulletin of business today. Joining us this morning, we have Hanifa Samla, who is a reporter and, of course, an attaché to the August House to give us more of what she's working on, what is making trends within Parliament and the different committees this early morning. Good morning, and thank you for joining us, Hanifa.
Good morning, Jerome. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, it's a pleasure having you on set this morning. If you are to tell the viewers out there, what should we be expecting? What is out there for the viewers to know more about the different committees in Parliament?
Today, the viewers should expect the budget performance for this financial year.
Okay.
That is 2021-2022, the financial year we are in.
Yeah, 2022-2020.
Yeah, because actually today is the deadline.
Okay.
Finance was supposed to bring the budget performance for this year.
A report for that?
A report earlier.
Okay.
They have even delayed.
Okay.
And Parliament has questioned them that why are you delaying our work?
Okay.
They were supposed to have before Parliament discusses the BFP for the next financial year, they must have discussed the performance for the budget in this very year.
Okay.
So the deadline for the BFP is on Wednesday. That is, they must have discussed it like tomorrow. Tomorrow is Tuesday. They must have discussed it and then approved rather on Wednesday. But up to now, Finance has not brought the statement for the budget performance for this year, which is the committee is supposed to assess it, and then they bring it to the whole house for discussion. But up to now, Finance has not brought this statement, and which is delaying the work of the committee and Parliament as well, because the deadline is Wednesday, and Wednesday it's 1st Feb. That is the deadline for discussing the budget framework paper for the next financial year. But they can't do that without discussing the performance for the budget in this very financial year that we're in.
So let me get this straight. The deadline for presenting the report for the performance of the current financial year is today? No. Okay.
The budget, Finance was supposed to have brought actually the performance for the budget that we are in earlier on.
Okay.
It is the deadline for the budget framework paper for the next financial year,
which is coming on Wednesday.
Yeah, on Wednesday.
Okay.
It's supposed to be approved by the rules of Parliament that guide Parliament. When on the 1st of February, they're supposed to have approved the budget framework paper for the next financial year. But before that happens, the Parliament must have discussed the performance for this very year, the financial year that we are in. But Finance, they are still waiting for Finance, because it is Finance that has the mandate to bring the performance of the financial year before it goes to the next financial year.
So before the deadline on Wednesday, what we should expect is that at least Finance should be giving us that report between today and tomorrow for the performance of this current financial year.
Exactly, and I think they are bringing it today. They're supposed to bring it today, because the committee itself has to assess it before it takes it to the House. If they bring it tomorrow, I don't think they'll have enough time because tomorrow plenary sits. And when plenary sits on Tuesday, that is when they're supposed to discuss the budget performance, and then you give members of Parliament time to discuss it. They're supposed to discuss it. And in fact, last week the Deputy Speaker proposed that on Tuesday he has changed the order paper to allow members discuss the BFP, the budget performance rather. The budget performance, to allow them discuss it.
Okay.
There will not be time for matters of national importance because of time. Members, everyone would want to say something about the budget performance of this very year. So it is up to the finance and the committee to actually spare time and finish this faster, so that tomorrow is when the whole house is supposed to discuss it. But if they don't have it yet, with which finances aren't supposed to provide it, I highly doubt it will be discussed or it will be moved on.
Okay.
And of course, even the speaker said, if they don't finance, there are so many things it has not yet done. It has not yet even brought the certificate of compliance on climate change. They did not bring it when they are presenting the BFP for the next financial year.
I see.
And the speaker warned that if you do not bring the certificate of compliance on climate change, even the next financial year BFP won't be approved. I won't approve it. Because there are so many things that Parliament asks for finance and then they delay.
Okay.
So I think today since budget is sitting, they are expecting finance to bring the budget performance for this financial year so that they move on to the next financial year, the budget framework paper.
So well. And of course, for more proceedings regarding the parliamentary stories and of course different business discussions at Parliament, Hanifa is definitely there to give you all those details. And in tonight's bulletin, what you should be expecting is at least a report regarding how far the budget has performed or how various sectors have performed in the ongoing financial year, which is coming to an end June 30th this very year. But besides that, also as we prepare for the budget framework paper to be presented before Parliament as well, and clearly these are some of the key discussions that you should be part of for you as a business-oriented person or someone who wants more information regarding the business community within the country and of course the various sectors attached to the economy as well. Now, as we're heading into a break, just so you know that you can be part of the investment ventures in Uganda, and the better opportunity that you have today is to invest in government bonds. Use the USSD code *292# and quickly get ushered into the Zabu platform. Here you will get an advantage and stand a chance to invest in government bonds with just a minimum of 15,000 Ugandan shillings. Zabu is a platform by Altex East Africa, and it's definitely giving you the opportunity to do something new today. Zabu, my money, my future. Do remember the markets open at 8:15 a.m. and close at 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time, and they are fully closed during the weekends and of course on public holidays. So there you have it with Zabu. Make sure you invest in government bonds. If you do not have an account yet, you can register one today, and by tomorrow you will be able to invest in government bonds and other products available on the platform. Zabu, my money, my future. Altex East Africa, do something new. Well, after the break, Smart Means Business is going to be continuing with the SMB on ground with Barija Andrew. Stick around. Good morning. Smart24, driving business.
most loved entertainment.
We're up in the ante.
Upgrade your DSTV package and we'll boost you to the next higher package at no extra cost. If you're on Access and step up to Family, you get boosted to Compact.
You know what I mean.
If you're on Family, step up to Compact and we'll boost you to Compact Plus.
That's an absolute ripper.
And if you're on Compact, step up to Compact Plus. You'll get boosted to Premium.
It's gonna be lit.
Step up and we'll boost you even higher at no extra charge with DSTV.
Saving or securing for the future does not only mean investing in stocks, real estates, or companies, but there are so many chances of becoming a billionaire through practicing agriculture. You don't need a very big plot of land or large capital to start, but slowly by slowly you can build an empire.